Rhea Seehorn, in the most recent episode of Better Call Saul, you answered the question while defending Jimmy McGill that is the legal profession better served with Jimmy McGill in it? And you say a resounding yes.
Yes.
My question for you is the life of Kim Wexler better served by the presence of Jimmy McGill?
It's a good question. I think it's something that she grapples with. But I keep going back to the fact that he is the least duplicitous person in her life. And while the execution of his actions is definitely coloring outside of the line, increasingly, but the intentions are pure and his loyalty is quite pure. Not that she's a slave to it in a romantic way. I mean, they are in love with each other, and I do think she loves him. I think it's more, I think Kim recognizes and gravitates towards a person that seems to be telling her, you know, everything like it is. I think she felt very duped by a lot of the people at HHM and a lot of people that are supposed to be the pillars of justice and moral high ground that really weren't. And he does have her question things. He is the person that asked her to question the personal vendettas that might be behind her not moving up at HHM, and asked her to open her eyes to a lot of things that I think got her out of there and got her to start her own firm. But yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm continually having the challenges of Kim having to grapple with whether or not, I think learning that life is not black and white is a good thing. Where Kim came from before is also part of what I think makes her gravitate towards somebody like Jimmy, but I don't know that story yet.
So it's a yes, but less resounding.
It's a good question. It's a very good question. I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you feel about not just that scene where you give the big defense for him, but the episode beforehand? Because for a legal show, Better Call Saul has not seen heaps of courtroom scenes.
Right.
But boy, it delivered in the past couple.
Yes. Yeah. Gordon Smith wrote that and Dan Sackheim directed the bulk of that courtroom. Of course, it continues into last Monday's episode as well. It was great. I mean, I think that at first you can be concerned of like, wow, we're in a courtroom and doing a courtroom legal drama now. But it's not. As per usual, there's much greater repercussions, and it's about the showdown of this relationship, including Kim and Hamlin, which I think it was nice to finally be able to have that moment, to have her cross-examine him and get him to own up. I think Patrick and I had a good time talking about it and rehearsing it, just because we realized that both of our characters think the other one has hitched their cart to the wrong horse. And we're both looking at each other. I know he feels like, how could Kim Wexler stoop to really defending Jimmy? And I think she's looking at Hamlin thinking, how can you cover for Charles McGill anymore? And stop pretending that you're innocent in everything that happened to Jimmy and everything that happened to Kim while she was at that firm. So it was, but then it's all under this whole veneer of being professional, and which you see continue into the Jimmy and Chuck stuff as well. So we thought that was fun, and it was interesting to do it in its own Better Call Saul way, which is there's no jury. So it's not a performance level that you might see on a procedural. And also checking in with your characters, and the director would ask us, you know, what level of performance can your character do at this point? Because not all lawyers are great actors. And I loved watching Bob sort of unfurl almost a reluctance and then a resignation to what he has to do. It's very not showy. It's not showmanship Saul at all when he starts to attack his brother. And we had a really good time. I mean, yes, there's this Kane mutiny effect that happens, and Michael McKean is brilliant, and he did that breakdown, for lack of a better thing to call it, over and over and over and over for 2 days. And he's just so amazing in that episode. And I think all of us really enjoyed investing in how our characters would deal with that. No matter how many people in the courtroom are in on it or not in on it of what we're going to do, or aware of Chuck's illness or not aware of Chuck's illness to different degrees, like Hamlin, myself, and other people there, I don't think anybody was prepared for the sadness that episode ends with.
Yeah, it's like very serious, and as you say, Jimmy is not having the fun he usually has of his theatrics, but you guys pull all the stops. Like, you do everything it takes to win that case. You bring in Rebecca. Huell from the Breaking Bad world is brought in to the series to help secure the good verdict and stuff like that. So there was a lot of stuff happening, and you guys left it all out on the field.
Thanks. We tried. Yeah, it's fun. You know, even the smaller moments, the vending machine moment was tragically sad, I thought, because Kim sees that Jimmy doesn't have any conscience about whether or not Rebecca will hate him for this. I love that they just continue to honor, they being the showrunners, they continue to honor the intelligence of the audience. You know, that it's just one small moment after another one, and then suddenly this huge thing happens.
With Kim and playing Kim on the show, I think an interesting thing is that she is often a lot in not what she says, although when she says stuff is interesting, but when she doesn't speak and how she reacts to things. Do you think there's more power in Kim in the things that she says on the show or the things that she doesn't say?
It's a good question. I think it's equal, and if anything, the needle's more towards what she doesn't say, and not even just doesn't say, but chooses not to show at all. I think she plays her cards extremely close to the chest, and that's part of why it's hard to answer. Do I think she's better right now for being with Jimmy or not? There is something about the evolution of who she is that very much should be with Jimmy right now. And I do think that it's a real affection and a real respect, and definitely a real intimacy that sort of transcends it being romantic or not romantic in the past as well. But part of why it's hard to answer is because I do think I work very hard on the whole internal thought process that she has through things, and I love that it's doled out in only very specific moments. Does Kim show all her cards, and it's usually with Jimmy or alone with the audience when the camera's on her. So those are really great moments. There's a lot. It's been fun to learn from her. I am not someone who's comfortable being quiet. I fill silences. I'm very gestural. I'm always trying to make sure everybody's okay. And it's kind of incredible to learn the power that it has to just observe and to just let people play things out as they're going to, and kind of observe them in their natural habitat.
Yeah, and it's sort of funny, because she's most open either just to us, the audience, or to Jimmy, and there's times when she's on her own where it's just the audience gets to see and not Jimmy.
Yeah.
And then there's scenes where she opens up to Jimmy that we, the audience, don't get to see, because I guess the show's not wanting to telegraph what's going to come up in the court case and things like that.
Right. Clearly they must have some very private conversations that are off camera as well, because there's this real relationship there. Although now she's she's not even making it home to shower. She's going to a gym to shower. So her need for control and control through work is a huge problem in their relationship right now. I think she's just she's driving herself into the ground with what I think used to be a saving. It was a tool to save herself, was diving into your work and controlling everything and not wanting anything to slip through the cracks has become almost an albatross at this point, and is beginning to unravel her as we see. But it's I actually would have to say that there's more power in when she chooses not to speak. And to not show her cards, not even facially, to let anybody know what she's thinking. And it's fun to decide what I think she's thinking.
Yeah. What has been one of the interesting thoughts you've put in Kim's head?
There's a lot of curse words whenever Chuck's in the room. But that's definitely an area where it made a lot of sense to me why she doesn't speak more often. There's Chuck was this pillar of justice, and I think probably her biggest mentor, even before Hamlin, if not at least her ideal of the firm, as well as being a great lawyer. And he's completely fallen from that and forced her to realize that that's not the same as being a moral person or an ethical person or let alone a good person. And I think she hates that, that disturbance. But then he has utterly gone after with personal vendetta after his brother, Jimmy, that Kim loves. And no matter whether it doesn't matter whose side you're on as far as whether or not Jimmy should practice law. And unfortunately, we all have the experience of knowing the end of that and knowing that, like, okay, well, he ends up putting, hits on people, so probably not. But but the other things that Chuck has done to Jimmy since he was a child that we know has a lot to do with, in my opinion, and what I've made Kim's opinion, personal vendettas and jealousy and envy. He's just set out to destroy Jimmy in a way that begs the question, what would Jimmy have become without that? Would he have taken any better road? And so I think Kim has a lot of disdain for Chuck. However, it is Jimmy's brother, and he still wants a relationship with him. So those have been moments. There's been quite a few moments where Jimmy is letting Kim know that he's going to go try to talk to Chuck prior to now. I mean, in previous seasons and previous episodes, he wants to go talk to his brother, or isn't it great that Chuck wants to talk to me? And isn't this great? And it's one of those things where you like a friend who's dating someone awful, you need to keep your mouth shut because that's what he wants. There's things that I think she would like to say to Hamlin. And then one of my favorite moments this season of saying nothing except the word okay is when Jimmy asks Kim first to not represent him, to not help in court. And he comes back and has a huge apology. And she stops his work as soon as he acknowledges that he could have at least told her what's going on. Kim does not like to be embarrassed or called out in front of other people or made to look unprofessional in any way. I think she was deeply hurt and offended by that. But he then goes on, and she's sitting at her computer and says nothing, and they don't even show my face. She's just staring at him, and he's doing this long monologue about how he wants to fix it, and he wants to be the one to do this, and he doesn't want her help. And eventually she says okay. And in my mind, I thought, at some point, Kim has to realize that he's asking the same things that she demands. You don't save me, I save me, the great line that Ann Cherkis gave me last season. And so that was the kind of thing where I thought, God, if I was playing me, I would have let someone know that I hear them the whole time. And yes, okay, yes, thank you for the apology. And listen, here's my thoughts on that, and here's my thoughts on this. And instead, she has a very internalized way of thinking things out and then only having measured responses. And it makes so much sense when I'm playing her. And then I leave and I'm a babbling idiot.
That's interesting what you said there about the Jimmy Kim wanting to help each other thing, which is something I wanted to ask you about. Is they both seem to have this independence where they don't want the other person to help them, like last season.
Or anybody.
Yeah, or anybody. Yeah.
Anybody.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think particularly though with Jimmy and Kim, they don't want to get the other person caught up in their mess. They don't want to hurt the other person by having them put their neck out for them and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's a very admirable trait on one level, to want to be independent and not want to hurt the person you care about. But in another sense, there seems like there's some pride involved in that, of not wanting to get help from anybody and wanting to do everything on their own. Do you think, like, is it a good trait or a bad trait?
I think it's a very interesting question. And I think it is part of the attraction they have for each other, and even the respect they have for each other, is they both will get things done, come hell or high water. Now, how you go about that and what your intentions are, therein lies the rub. And for Kim, there's a lot of pride, but it's borderline, it's disturbing almost. Like, she's not disturbed, but you know what I'm saying? Like that level of, I need to be the sole person's responsible for my well-being at all times. And I can't accept help. To me, like, whenever you have extremes like that, it begs the question of, what's your problem with the opposite? Like, what kind of issues does she have to be beholden to someone? It seems to be something that she cannot have, like, just cannot deal with, to owe anybody anything, to be beholden to anybody for anything. Even the law firm with HHM, long after she knew I should probably go, it was constantly, I owe them. I owe them for giving me a chance. I owe them for believing me, and I owe them actual dollars for paying for the law school. She's loyal to a fault, but you're right. There's the side of that. It's like, wow, what a great person to have a relationship with. But it is, I think it's more ego driven than completely altruistic. It's the id. It's refusing to admit that you can't do everything by yourself. Or, like I said, refusing to have a debt to anybody. And I don't know why that is yet, but I keep it in my mind all the time when she's dead set on things. I think that's just who she is. I think something led her in her life up until now that once you make a decision to do something, she doesn't stop, and she does not, and she certainly doesn't like to have to owe anybody for getting there.
Yeah. And I think that there's something really that I like about this relationship with you and Jimmy, is there is, as dark as the show can be, as bad decisions as Jimmy might make or other characters might make in the show, there's something really sweet about how Kim and Jimmy each go into bat for each other.
Yeah, there is. And one of the writers had said, while we were navigating this season, because there's the romantic relationship / friendship, and then there's also a law firm relationship to navigate, and just working with someone that you're dating is very often a catastrophe, no matter what. But they had said that a work relationship takes love, and a romantic relationship takes work. And I agree. Yeah. And I agree to a great extent in this particular situation. And I feel like what's sweet / accessible in this relationship to a lot of people, when I've had amazing fans come and talk to me about the relationship, and what has always rung very true to me, is that they are utterly transparent to each other and to the audience about the work it takes to have a relationship. These are two extreme people, but I think it's very accessible on many levels to people, that idea of just the constant messiness of each other's differences, and navigating having a life with someone, and then staying. The constant question to ask yourself, like, are you staying? Are you staying? Are you staying? Are you staying? And I love the idea that they can get in a huge argument and walk out of the room, and they don't have to resolve that argument, which is unusual on TV. They can leave the room because they assume you'll be there when I get back. And to me, that's what makes it look like it's a real relationship. It's the safety in knowing that, yeah, this is messy, and then I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, definitely. This season, we've seen so much more of the Breaking Bad world collide with Better Call Saul, from sort of Gus coming into the show, but on your side of things too, Huell coming in for the court case, Jimmy,
Francesca,
yes, Jimmy referring himself as Saul Goodman in the ad,
Yeah.
and Kim being exposed to that name. How are you finding all the Breaking Bad stuff coming in this season? Probably at a more rapid rate than we've seen previously on the show.
Yes, well, I mean, the timeline's advancing, so there's certain rules in place that they can't get out of it. As far as when you saw certain relationships in Breaking Bad, Peter Gould was talking about this the other day, that if these are people that have never met, or people that have met, or people that seem like they knew each other for a while, or they reference at least one job together or anything like that in Breaking Bad, we've got to start laying that. We like, I'm in the trenches writing. They have to start, laying this groundwork in. It can't be that they met 5 seconds before Breaking Bad starts. So yeah, they are coming in at a much more rapid pace, and because the writers are so great, it's never stunt casting. It's not a drive-by. People are there for a reason. They are there in situations that very much make sense, that's how they must have met each other or come into each other's worlds. And then you're also getting, I love it because you're also seeing, it isn't 20 years ago, but it is, where are we now in the timeline? Would it be 4 years, I guess, before? You'll have to ask somebody better with the exact timeline of where this season is. I know it was 5. I think it's still 5. At any rate, the Gus Fring, he's not the total kingpin unquestioned yet, but he's very close to it. So what is that fine nuance that's different? And it's amazing watching Giancarlo Esposito play that. And watching Hector, watching Mark Margolis travel down this path that, as we all know, literally one day will physically incapacitate him, is kind of mind-bending. And the wonderful work that Tina Parker's doing as far as like who she was. And that's almost heartbreaking to realize, wow, Saul, working for Saul turned her into the Francesca that we see in Breaking Bad, from this sweet, woman who hot rollers her hair right now. It's kind of great. I love it. I love this tapestry just getting like a more and more complex weave to it.
And jumping in further ahead, the flash forward this year, the black and white scene that opened the season. Were you excited to see a Kansas City Royals lunchbox in the scene?
People are very fascinated with the Kansas City Royals stuff. I want you to know that I know only as much as you guys do. I think they're afraid that I'll blab. They've not told me anything. But I have fun making up as many backstories in my head, and then choosing one and keeping it very close to the chest for myself. But yeah, it was fun. I love seeing any of the Gene scenes, though, by the way. Any of those flash forwards. There's something riveting about the way Bob is playing Gene, and the whole setup of him being this kind of terrified Babbitt, that's just squashed and scared, but he still has Saul in him, but he also has Jimmy in him. You can see a Jimmy in there too. It's a strange ending beat, and where is everybody else and what is happening? And yeah, it's fun. I got my Kansas City Royals nightshirt. He's got a Kansas City Royals lunchbox. Kim still will not say where she's from. Somewhere on the Omaha-Nebraska border is all that she'll say. But yeah, I have fun like the fans sometimes. You show up to set and just watch the clues, and it's very exciting for the cast as well.
Yeah. My wish list for Better Call Saul is to see Kim Wexler in one of those scenes.
Yeah, I like it. I always go to set and watch those scenes being filmed because it's very cool. You have no idea how long it takes to do a time lapse, or maybe you do, but it's far longer than I thought for 15 seconds of time lapse Cinnabon. But it's fascinating, and I go and watch them, and I'm constantly joking them, saying, "Okay, so then you pan back, and Kim works at Claire's Accessories right next door in the mall, and has her own comb over and kind of pattern balding." And a sad apron. Mostly they just tell me to be quiet because they're rolling, so I don't really know if anything's happening.
No, but I think I don't know. For some reason, Breaking Bad, I wanted a sort of bad ending in some ways, and Better Call Saul, I'd rather a happy ending for Better Call Saul. I don't know why.
That's interesting. You're not the only person that said it. And here's the thing. These guys are so smart, and they do have a tendency towards happiness even has its consequences. So I've always thought in my head, when people say, could you ever see those two together? There would be a cost to both of them if they're together, and there would be happiness there, but also a bit of a tragedy about it, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're undeniably drawn to each other, like I said. So there would be a cost. There would be a cost, and I haven't quite figured out where Kim is emotionally and psychologically by the time Saul is the Saul that we know.
Yeah, she could have died a horrible death.
Don't say that.
We don't know.
It's very true. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. It's not what I'm hoping for.
You just said you hope she's at Cinnabon. So.
That's what I would like. I am preparing for the worst, so I'm not too disappointed.
To be fair, if you are going to die on a show, at least on this one, it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they write, I'm never worried that this will continue to be, one of my favorite roles I've ever played, and. She fascinates me, and they have never stopped challenging me. So I love it.
Yeah. How fun would it be to get an Emmy nomination this year?
That would be kind of.
Would that be fun?
It's hard to say that. I know.
Yeah.
I giggle through it because it's just that's one of those things you only talk about in private to the mirror when you're starting in acting classes. But there's so many great shows on. I watch a ton of TV. There's so many great shows. And to be honest, this is not fluff. The fact that our show still is getting eyeballs on it and standing out, and both critics and fans are liking it, and the show keeps getting nominated. There's a huge party that goes on set when we get nominated, because we've been on set twice. This year we won't. We'll have to call each other if we get nominated. And I love seeing Bob's work recognized. I want Michael McKean's work recognized. I want Jonathan Banks' work to continue to be recognized. Every single one of our writers and every single one of our directors. There's so many people but then you get into that world of like deserved, and what does that mean? Because a lot of people deserve it. I love this character they wrote for me. This season is remarkable at seeing just how particularly and specific to her they can show what happens when a person like that begins to unravel, who keeps things in so tightly, and you do see that. It just keeps eating away at her. The stress and the ill-gotten gains and her own ambitions and pride, the stuff we were talking about as far as things that used to be good qualities becoming bad qualities. To have that recognized by the Emmys, I'd probably pee my pants. I mean, it would just be that would be some pretty amazing icing on a cake that I have to tell you I'm incredibly grateful for.
Yeah. Well, it's so fun to see like Kim on the show, a character that we didn't really have like any expectations for before the series started. Like, we're all very excited to see Bob Odenkirk and see Jonathan Banks,
sure.
But this Kim character, just someone smoking with Jimmy in the pilot, we had no idea what would become of her. And it's been really fun to see. So thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you.
All the best for the Emmys and everything else.
Thanks. Thank you for all of the support that you guys give my performance as well as the show.
Yeah, no worries. And hopefully see you in Sydney one day.
Yes, I would love that.